Good evening, everyone. It's the 29th of March, so it's taken me about 3 weeks to get this video out. Unfortunately, I came back after the tournament on the 7th of March, and Leeches had a fire somewhere and their database went down, and I rely on their database for a big part of my analysis after I do my own part. And before I do the engines, I waited until the database was back up so I could finish my analysis. So I took some videos again before the tournament, in between the rounds, as well as just by the end. It was not a great tournament. I would probably call this my first disappointing tournament, I guess. I lost my first two games. My first one just very poor play right out of the opening. My second game I was actually better twice now that I've analyzed it. Once better in the position that I knew, and the second time way better, -5 in the position that I once again was better in. And after I messed up and promoted too early by one tempo. If I'd moved my king once and promoted, I would have won still. After I made that mistake, I actually could have still drawn the game if I had, spent a bit more time counting squares around and I didn't take my bishop off the diagonal, which I did. So I put the games in the normal Leeches study Flippy Floppies OTB games, so they're all three of them are there. I thought I would share just some interesting things I remember from the tournament now afterwards. My first game was actually against the organizer of the previous tournament in Naniwa, and he turned out to be really strong. So although I got smashed, absolutely, I was actually not completely lost until I played d6, I think, instead of h6 or h5, so I could hide my bishop after I had to play it to g6 to defend the pawn on g7. Yeah, it was as silly as it sounds. But I didn't do that for some reason. And then after I played f5, it was just completely lost. Well, I just went down a rook with my card play. My second game, I sat down in front of my opponent. Those are my socks, by the way. This is masks and socks washing. I sat down in front of my opponent. Every round I was barely in time, my first two rounds, because I would kind of take some time to stretch and drink something. I sat down, we're basically starting. I still have to write on my score sheet we can start. And my opponent reaches across and starts straightening my pieces. I don't have a lot of OTB experience, but this was super weird. So I don't know. He seemed like a really nice guy. I don't think he meant anything by it, but there's definitely, I think if he wanted to, he could have meant it to be a bit of like a power play, like some kind of like, I'm in control here, I'm setting the board up situation, because I almost feel a little bit violated. He's reaching over the board and straightening out my knight. How does he know how I want my knight? He can't touch it, that's not fair. Anyway, I mean, it obviously didn't really matter, but it was a surprise, not only that he did it, but how I immediately reacted. I went like, wait, what? That's not okay. And then in the third game, my mood had just crumbled completely by then. I don't know if it shows in the videos, but anyway, I was not feeling very excited. I played against a lower rated opponent a fair bit. I think I'm still underrated, to be honest. I mean, I've barely started getting a rating locally, but yeah, so he's a bit under me even now, and I Kolizuka taught it and just tried to attack, and then I messed that up completely actually. I wasn't worse by much, but I was definitely worse for a while. And then my opponent, who was black, actually hung a piece and I didn't see it because, again, I was just not really focusing properly, so I didn't realize that I could take the piece, and after they take my queen, I can just take their queen, and then both our pieces are still hanging and I'd be up a piece by the end of it. But then I think that I got to them a little bit by, I said sacking my bishop. That was a mistake. I sacked my rook actually. Very in line with my online play nowadays. It seems that I actually think that there's a little bit of a blind spot in many people's calculations on the chessboard at my level or lower or so forth, where they don't really analyze sacking the exchange. So not to say that Ben Feingold once again has taught me something useful, but I have won a few games now in the past few weeks and months this year, 2021, in last year as well maybe, where I sacked a rook for another piece and they just ended up getting, some really good compensation. So yeah. Anyway, so this was a terrible tournament, and I realized, one more thing that I guess, I realized just not only from the tournament, but even just from my weekly games on the Leeches League, how much I get influenced by the result of one game. The reality is that I play one league game a week, and I play some Rapid and Blitz, and I watch a few videos during the rest of the week, and I play some correspondence on chess.com as well, and I do like puzzles during lunch nowadays instead of playing, because it's just a waste of time if I play. And if I win my league game, I mean, can't touch this. I'm just the best. I feel so validated if I win, I guess. And if I lose, what am I doing with my life? And so not only obviously the emotional value I put on a win or a loss is just way too much, way overboard, but it's also the sample size is just much too small. There's a lot happening in every week, and there are many conditions that are different and better or worse. But if you only play one game a week, although you will definitely improve over time, the chance that you're playing the same opponent, the same level, the same side, the same opening, that what you learn and what you get tested on in a game is completely unrelated for so many weeks or days or even months sometimes. I prepped the BOGO in that tournament and I got one game. And I recently got another game, a BOGO in my Leeches League game, I think. And that was super useful. But, I also prepped some other stuff and I haven't played that once. Not even Blitz yet. So, it's really difficult to really take measure of your own improvement in the short term. Regardless of how much you play, I think it's a little bit difficult. But if you're spamming games, I guess there's some degree of validity in, like a big sample size. But yeah, so for me, I definitely have to try calm down with the emotional roller coaster. So I turned to my girlfriend, was it this weekend or the one before, and I realized recently that I get so emotionally attached to if I win or lose a game. And she just looks at me like deadpan, like, yeah, I already knew that. Because she has to deal with my shitty emotions afterwards, I guess. So yeah, I feel like I've learned something, but apparently it's been incredibly obvious all along. Yeah, well, anyway, thank you for the support, Furi. So yeah, I'll put the links in the description, and I will roll my videos for the tournament now, I guess. It was terrible. It was an absolutely shocking performance. In all three games, actually, it was just really bad play. So yeah, a lot to take away from that in terms of what my mindset is when I go into a tournament, regardless of the stage. Because even at the start, apparently, I was just not paying any attention. Alright, I hope everyone's good, and let's have a good year as much as we can. I might get some extra leave next month, apparently. I hear tomorrow whether Japan's government is going to force us to take some leave. Oh no. Yeah, alright, good morning everyone. It's the 7th of March 2021, back in Osaka for another tournament. We're at a different community center this time, close to Pentencho, close to the harbor in Osaka. This time we're playing the Osaka Championship Qualifiers, or the qualifier in Osaka for the national championship. So people who qualify here can go play, I think, in Golden Week in the national championship in Tokyo. We've got about 14 players, I think, or so it'll be another really nice one. Today will only be one day though, so this is Sunday already, which means that I got to spend yesterday just having a nice weekend, and today we're going to play some chess. So compared to last time, because this is my second time and I actually won some games in my previous tournament I competed in, I'm kind of nervous because I feel like I can build some expectations on myself now. I should be able to win some games. So I guess there's still a long way to go to getting used to tournament play. At least I'm going to try and remember to press my clock every round. That'll help. Yeah, let's go. Alright, so we're hitting 12 o'clock. First round just finished. I had my ass handed to me as black with the Nimzo Indian. I was very excited about it, but I ended up studying the Bogo before I came, thinking that maybe the Nimzo would be happening, but it totally did. And it did not go well. I played knight e4 way too quickly, and then ended up having my bishop off the main diagonal because I played b6 like a Queen's Indian, and had to defend the pawn on g7 with bishop g6, so it's just really ugly. And then dropped the rook in the corner because the diagonal was still open and couldn't trap the queen, and had zero counterplay, and just slowly cried myself into it. And then eventually I just gave up out of I feel like I'm just wasting everyone's time because I know I'm going to lose. I'm down too much material and we traded off almost everything else. So online I think ideally I would have kept on playing the whole round, or the whole game down to a checkmate. It's just my style, but I felt kind of, it's so mean to make someone else have to checkmate me in a position that's clearly just incredibly lost. So maybe I'm also changing a little bit. So I'm going to do the tiniest unboxing in the world. So we got a little present for when we signed up, and they said it was a pen. So I was like, oh yeah, cool, a pen. And then it's a chess.com pen. Not what I expected. Chess.com, play, learn, share. Come play and learn at the #1 online chess website. I mean, I play a little bit on chess.com, but it's not my favorite, I guess. I prefer the analysis on League Chess, to be honest. And of course, the League Chess Lone Wolf and 45 leagues were quite fun. But it's nice to have a pen because I actually ran out a week and a half ago, my favorite pen at work. So, yeah, cool. Alright, I think it's time to have some lunch and just get our heads set. Maybe you just have to do like a Swiss Gambit now then. You just lose your first game, get the nerves out, stop doing stupid stuff, and then you can have a better rest of the tournament. Unfortunately, it's only 3 rounds. So it's going to be quick, I guess. But yeah, we'll see how round 2 goes. Alright, I'm hiding in the emergency escape staircase just to record the video quick. So round 2's done. I was black again, which means I guess that I'm going to be white in round 3, and d4, and then I got into a Bogo. Can you believe it? First a Nimzo, then a Bogo. So I was really happy to see it because I get to play something that I've been looking at, which is really good. And he went knight d2, which is a slightly more tricky variation, I guess. And then in the middle game, I think I had something. You know, I got to play e5. I got to put my knight on e4. He had to trade off his dark square bishop for it, which came after I took with the tempo on his queen because it was on the e file with my rook. And I got to play e3. Then he had to take dx e3, and then I got to take with either my bishop or my rook, which either threatens to just kind of mate him immediately, or we push some more things down the side of the board. So he had to play his rook over, and I played rook e2 anyway, and he took, and I took with my bishop, attacking his queen again, and if his queen takes my bishop, I get to take his rook in the corner. And he played queen d1. So in this position I just had no time left, so I ended up taking his rook, so he took with his queen, so I played my rook up and, you know, checked his king against his queen as well, and so he took that, I took, and then we went into a same bishop endgame, 5 pawns each, 3 on the king side, 2 on the queen side. And again I thought it was better. I got to play f5 with tempo, then f6 with tempo, then f5 against his bishop, then f4, which he took with his pawn. I took back, so now I had a passed pawn on the 4th rank. I got to play f3, And then I completely missed that after we traded off, he'd have his king on the queen side, you know, attacking my pawn, which I have to defend with my king or a bishop, and then walking his a pawn up with his h pawn still on the other side of the board. So he played bishop h3, and then I decided to queen, and we traded the bishops on the pawn off. Unfortunately, I think it was too quick, because then suddenly his king was on that side and I ended up losing. So it was a long game, really fun. I didn't have time in the middle, unfortunately. I just took too long to get to that position. It was really frustrating to lose twice, but it was a fun game. I'll have a look when I get back to my home. And almost time for the third round, so I guess today's going to be quick. It's going to suck if I lose all 3 games. I'm going to try my best for the last round anyway. I will see. Alright, here we are again, end of round 3. I was white as predicted, and considering how badly my 2 first rounds went, or disappointing, I decided I would just play the Zugertort Collie or something, just attack and see what happens. So I started attacking, but I attacked into the Pirts, which is not really what I was hoping for. And it got a little bit messy and not quite the way I was hoping it would go. And then actually I'm pretty sure I made a mistake, and I went down a pawn, but I got a bit of, you know, the more pawns I lose, the more open files I have for my rooks, right? So I got a bit of counterplay, and then my opponent made some mistakes defending around their king. I sacked a bishop for 2 pawns, and instead of going for the draw, I pushed a little bit, and then they made a mistake. And yeah. So that's the end of round 3. 1 out of 3, not the best. I mean, I'll go look at my games, but it's a little bit disappointing, obviously. You know, hoping for something better, but it happens. And obviously still glad to play some chess. Yeah, so just hoping for the other people to finish, and we'll see, maybe there's some small prize giving, thank you for coming story. And then I'm gonna go relax and have the rest of my Sunday before getting up at 5 a.m. to go to work again tomorrow morning. Oh my goodness, maybe I should just go home now.